I'm happy that after delicious meals, 2-course meals, and third course is perhaps coming, you are still awake. When you stood up, I felt that it's a good time to speak. Otherwise, I was thinking that the organizers, Chris has given me a very tough time to speak in the end. Kerry was fortunate to speak in the beginning. But anyway, let me begin with a lighter note. Everybody respects a Nobel laureate, Peace Laureate especially, thinking that they are outstanding people in their lives and their work. There was a journalist who was driving in countryside, and he noticed that a man was standing in a field, open field, under sky, hot sun. So that made this journalist curious. He slowed down his car, stopped, and went close to this guy. And then he went and asked him, "Sir, what are you doing here?" He said, "Don't disturb me. I'm busy with very important thing." Then journalist waited for another 10 minutes or so. Then he asked, "Sir, may I know now, what are you doing here, alone?" He said that I am waiting for a Nobel Prize. So how was possible? Because this man was looking like a farm worker or a laborer. So journalist asked, "Sir, how would you win the Nobel Prize?" He said that I read in my childhood that those who are out standing in their field, one day they will become the Nobel laureate. So nothing is special in me. And I'm so amazed to see these powerhouses, in fact, these young boys and girls, those who were so incredible, standing and telling. I could not understand fully, but thanks to Christina, who helped some translation to Kerry and me, when they were speaking in German. I met with them during the day. I spent an hour or so with them, and they had good questions, very polite questions. So I was thinking that they are good students, but I didn't know that they are among the loudest, most passionate, and the most genuine voices for human rights, not only in this country, but in the rest of the world. So after listening to them, and before that listening to Kerry, who started with a poetic description of her journey in the train, and then moved to the political challenges the world is facing today, and eventually created a ripple of hope here by introducing a few of us. And I'm thankful that she has always, always, always been a strength for me. Many times when I was attacked, she did not remain quiet. Many times when we tried to free the slaves, we required some moral support, and she was always there for almost 30 years. So thank you, Kerry. And not only that, when her twins were born and they were only a couple of months old, by chance we were organizing a worldwide march, the global march against child labor across 103 countries, which went on for about 6 months and covered 80,000 kilometer distance. So I invited her to join somewhere. I was hoping that she is going to show up and join in Washington, D.C. or in New York. But she's so brave, so courageous, and so passionate about human rights and the rights of children that he traveled all the way to India, and that was Indian summer, scorching heat, sun, dust, everything. And she was chanting slow-mo slogans. No more tools in tiny hands. We want books, we want toys. Our children want books and toys. I bowed down. I salute you, Carrie. And these girls, and especially the elder one, Kara, she decided to come when they were 18, 19-year-old, decided to go all the way to the same place in ashram where Carrie has been in 1998, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Kara did some volunteer work for several months, spending time with the kids who were freed from slavery, and all of them were there during Christmas 2 years ago. So I was asked to to speak something about youth and compassion. I strongly feel that in this expanding world, something is shrinking. We are so connected artificially through artificial intelligence in the digital world, using all the gadgets without which we cannot live. We live in the age of high-speed internet. We live in the age of fast-speed jets. We cannot wait for anything. But something which is shrinking is compassion. All of us are born with two things, so many things, but I would say the two divine gifts. One is consciousness, that is awakening, the symbol of life, that we are alive. And another one is compassion, which shows that we are not just alive, we are connected, we are human beings. As a child, when the child is born, the biological or biochemical reactions which goes to the brain of mother and also simultaneously to a child is now researched well, and the scientists reached to that conclusion that it is compassion. So compassion is a biological thing. It's a social thing, it's a political thing, it's connected with human rights. Normally, we are taught that compassion is a preaching. For years, people thought that nonviolence is a preaching, peace is a preaching, or truth is a preaching. But people like Mahatma Gandhi in India have converted those preachings or moralities, values, or virtues, which we have to respect, but he has been able to convert them into social movement and political movement against the India's, for the India's freedom, independence. I strongly feel that my work for freeing children is driven by compassion. I'm not talking about sympathy or empathy. Sometimes people mix those things, empathy and compassion. Sympathy is the outermost circle. When you feel the suffering of others, the pain of others, be sympathetic as good human being, and you just pass by. You may remember it for time being, but then you forget and then you are busy with your own routine. Then empathy is a deeper circle where you feel the suffering of others as your own suffering. And that impact deeper inside you. And then we try to feel that, and once in a while we go close to that person and try to connect with. But in many other cases, when we are not able to solve that suffering, we become depressed, disappointed, angry, burnout, and so on. Then comes compassion. Compassion is a feeling for suffering of others as your own suffering, with a strong drive and desire, a passionate desire to overcome that suffering. So when you help others, you don't help others. When you try to overcome the suffering of other person, you don't feel that you are overcoming other suffering, because you feel that this suffering, this pain is your own pain. So if millions of children are living in slavery, if millions of children are sold and bought like animals, if millions of children are working day in and day out and producing wealth at the cost of their freedom, if 50 million children are on move tonight and they are looking for a safer place to stay tonight, for not their fault. They are children on move, those who have been displaced and became refugees in other countries and other places. Or the children who have been displaced from their home countries and home villages because of global warming and climate change. 50 million. If we started feeling that they are our children, whose children are they? We are walking on the same earth. We are dwelling the sunlight from the same sun. Is it not enough to feel connected with each other? I always feel that the children have never been responsible for poverty. They are not responsible for violence and wars. Children have never drawn any line on this beautiful Mother Earth, what we call borders. The crazy idea of passport and visas was never created by a child. These are all creations of so-called wise people, matured people, people in power. Children have not done it, but they are the worst sufferers. They are the worst victims. I strongly feel that we have globalized everything. We have globalized knowledge, information, economies, market, production, technology. And we have seen results in both ways. Some positive results, but I would say that when the humanity is shrinking, when the sense of mutual responsibility is shrinking, a deeper sense of responsibility is shrinking, compassion is shrinking. We have created our own silos, our own circles, the circles of our own identities, power circles, circles of our positions, circles of cultures, religions, whatnot. We have to go back to think like a child in a more simple way. If we can learn forgiveness, if we can learn simplicity, if we can learn truth from someone, I'm afraid that it could be an adult person, whatever knowledgeable priest he or she is. If we have to learn the purity of heart, that can only be learned from a child. And that's why we have to ignite compassion. We have globalized everything, and we have reached to a stage of suicidal brink of suicide in next 20, 30, 50 years. We all know that how this climate change is going to affect if we are not able to find the solution. the hatred, the xenophobia, the Islamophobia, all kind of new kind of politics which has come, divisive politics. It's not something to be frightened, but definitely something to be accepted as challenge and to find some answers. And that is the reason I am talking about globalization of compassion. Globalization of compassion means finding the solution to the real human connect, not the digital connect. Without ego, you are going to solve the suffering of others as your own suffering. Then you make true friends. In a world, in my own office actually, there are many young people who are PhDs, some of them are Harvard graduates, some of them are Oxford graduates, and they are working with me in my office in Delhi. And once in a while, they take leave and they go for some sort of counseling. They get counseling from a psychologist because they feel burnout, they feel depressed. One thing is that they feel loneliness, they've fallen apart in love with their boyfriends and girlfriends, all kind of things. Loneliness, mistrust, or insecurity. And when I sit with them, I feel that they have lost that relationship of compassion where you feel the feeling of your boyfriend or girlfriend as your own feeling without any return or expectation. I realize that most of us are living in a world where we suspect each other or we build relationship with our mind, with our interest, forgetting our human emotions or compassion inside. So, I believe that all religions in the world are born out of compassion. If you talk of Jesus, if you talk of Muhammad, if you talk of Buddha, if you talk of all great people in the world, what was the trigger? The trigger was compassion. They could not sit quiet because they had that spark of compassion, feeling the suffering of others, and they became the problem solver. A compassionate person is not a problem, but a problem solver, knowingly or unknowingly. It is not done systematically, it is done naturally. If something goes wrong with your leg or hand or some mosquito bite or anything, then your whole body and brain active together. But it does not happen with others. So, not only religions were born out of compassion, but very interestingly, people won't believe, but the reality is that all the revolutions in the world were born out of compassion. All the social transformation initiatives were taken by some people who were compassionate for others and dedicated all their life and even made the supreme sacrifice. They don't feel that they have done any sacrifice. I am just a humble social worker. And in all my life, I tell you, my dear sisters and brothers, that whenever I free a child, the smile of freedom appears on her face is nothing less than the smile of God. I could feel that I have not freed that child, but that child has freed me from inside. And each time when the tears roll down on the cheeks of those mothers who lost all the hope that they can ever hug their son after 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, and if I'm able to restore them back to their lap, these tears of joy are smiles of God. And that is good enough to inspire me and to fight for such things. So I gave this just my example because this was my own experience. But you need not to do much for that. Everybody is born with that wealth of compassion. If you believe in God, or if you don't believe in God, the compassion is inside each one of us. And God can never be, I believe in God, so I could say that God can never be so meager that if he is giving some, or she is giving, not he, some divine gift, then why she would be so meager? Then she should have large heart. And if she is going to give something, then she will give the whole ocean, the ocean of compassion. We all are born with ocean of compassion, which we keep on ignoring, which we keep on suppressing. We are told every day that you are born to earn money, earn fame, earn power. Without without money, you cannot live, so you become hungry. Hungry for something which is not so needed for the betterment of the world. You can give back to the society, even if you have earned power, money, whatever, fame. So, if we go a little bit deep inside us, we all are compassionate human beings. We have to see that how we can build relationship with compassion with each other. How we can run our businesses with compassionate intelligence. Not with intelligence, not with emotional intelligence, but I am calling for compassionate intelligence. How can you do the politics with compassionate intelligence where the relationship between you and your voters is a compassionate relationship where you are not doing any pity or any mercy to anyone because you feel that your voters are you. So, compassionate business, compassionate politics, compassionate society, even I would call compassionate religions. I hardly come across those faith institutions and leaders who connect with people with that compassion, not as preacher, not as gurus, not as someone who is sitting on the top and other people are touching their feet and feeling obliged. Your connection should be equal connect, equality, and that is the connect of compassion in every walks of life. And that's why I have strong faith in the young people. I don't want to take much of your time, but I will share with you a story of a boy. There are so many stories. Actually, Claudia will ask for some stories this evening that what had been to those 90,000 children whom we freed. But of course, there are no more children. Most of them are become fathers or mothers or grandfathers even. So their grandchildren calls us great-grandfather, great-grandmother to Sumedha. So we have rescued them 40 years ago. Anyway, there is a boy called Amar Lal. When he was about 6-7 years old, along with his family, mother, father, and 2 of his brothers. So 3 of them were working in stone mining, stone quarrying. The earth is sometimes so fragile, it can fall down, and some of these children, normally the children are buried alive because children are asked to go inside the small tunnels to dig out the stones. So he was born in such kind of family, and his father and mother were slaves. So children were born in slavery. Somehow we came to know, and we did an operation, as you saw in the film, and we rescued a group of children. Amal was youngest. He was very bright boy. He used to sit in Sumedha's lab or my lab, wanted to learn everything on the earth. And then he came in contact with my son, who was lawyer. Amal wanted to become the lawyer because my son was fighting for most oppressed children and people in the country. So he studied their basic education, secondary education, went to university, and last year he became a lawyer, eventually. And we were so happy. So a few months ago, Amal came to me and my wife and touched our feet, and he was very happy and very moved. He said that Bhai Sabji means big brother, they all call us brother. He said that I wanted to share an incident of today. He came back from the court. He is a practicing lawyer now. So he told that today when I was coming back from the courtroom, I saw a father and his daughter was sitting outside and they were badly crying. And a few lawyers and other people were threatening them and asking them to sign some piece of paper. Then Amarlal went close to them and learned about what was happening. He was threatened by those senior lawyers that, what are you doing here? He said that I'm of your fraternity. And he's very new, so they had no doubt on him. So he listened the whole story and he found that this girl, 15-year-old, has been raped by a police officer in slum. She was a beautiful girl, very poor. And her condition was very serious and she was taken to hospital. And that was about 6 months ago or so. So a case was registered against that police officer. But there was no follow-up by the prosecutors, prosecuting agencies, because they want to defend that police officer, rapist. And the poor father and the girl were threatened to sign on the papers to withdraw the case. And father agreed because he was under serious threat and nobody was helping him. How difficult to get justice in such most gruesome conditions is one example, and that is right in the capital of India, in Delhi. So Amarlal listened the whole thing and he suddenly got furious and he said that this is not possible. He requested this guy that don't sign these papers. I'm going to fight for you. The lawyer said, who are you? He said, I am a lawyer. He's a tiny young man. But he was very courageous and he said that I'm not going to leave it like that. I will fight for my sister. I feel that she is my sister. That was his words. And this has happened to my sister. I cannot leave this place. And he sat there. And he was holding hand of this man. Somehow the man could feel the feeling of Amarlal and the intention. And he said that I'm not going to sign. Then holding one hand of that girl, 15-year-old, and another hand of her father, he went inside the courtroom. And he said that I am now defending this case. Judge has already been informed that the final papers are going to be signed and the case would be withdrawn today. So judge was somehow connived or something, influenced. So judge said that, who are you? Then Amarlal said that I will fight for her. The case was reopened that day. Amarlal was happy. He came and touched our feet. And we were so moved in tears when our own son, Bhuvan, who is one of the top lawyers on the issues of children, slavery, trafficking, bonded labor, child labor in the country, 10 out of 10 Supreme Court judgment that has changed the directions of Indian policy are attributed to him in last 6-8 years. And we were always happy. But I tell you, I was never been so happy, neither Sumedha, when our son Amarlal did this. Because he comes from that background. His parents are still daily wage workers. They don't have roof. They were living in Santis or somewhere. Very poor people. But this boy says that no. He said that I am not a lawyer to earn money or fame or anything. I wanted to give back to the society whatever I have gained in my life. Freedom, dignity, justice. Millions of young people want freedom, dignity, and justice. Dear friends, I trust young people, I said them today. I have been working across 140 countries for the last 20 years. And more than 20 years. And everywhere I worked with young people. And 2 years ago, Kerry, the Dalai Lama, 24 Nobel laureates or institutions and moral authorities assembled in Delhi with 10,000 children, youth like you. And all of us jointly launched a campaign called 100 Million for 100 Million. The idea behind it is that 100 million youth in the world, young people, are victims of violence, slavery, trafficking, child labor. Of course, they are violent. But acute poverty, denial of education, denial of health, denial of human dignity, denial of human rights, all these forms of denial of very fundamental things to which to be a child, to be a human being, are also violence. Inequality is violence. Discrimination is violence. And 100 million children are facing multiple violence. On the other hand, the world has a wealth of 3 billion youth below the age of 25. And many of them in professions, in schools, colleges, universities, are full with not only energy and enthusiasm, but they have a good heart. Millions of them wanted to make this world a better place. And my belief goes stronger and stronger. Tonight when I was listening, watching these youth and talking to them during the day, my trust goes deeper and my conviction goes stronger that the future of the world is the future of young people. They are not our future, they are our present. And then we launched the campaign with an idea that at least 100 million young people should be the spokesperson, change makers, leaders and champions for those 100 million left out sisters and brothers of them. No voices can be louder and powerful than the voices of young people for other young people. No action could be stronger and impactful than any action or any initiative taken by the young people for other young people. Because instead of watching two diversely growing constituencies in the world, which is creating gulf, not just gap, in all walks of life, better to converge them. They should become more responsible to each other. So 100 million young people for 100 million young people. Within last 2 years, this was expanded across 35 countries. In Sweden, for example, last year, when the Swedish government decided to decrease their overseas development assistance in education, that announcement has been made publicly by SIDA, the Swiss agency. Our 100 million campaigners, the young people in schools and colleges, organized an event, an activity, inviting the local politicians to come to their schools and listen to them. 20% parliament members visited the schools on the invitations of young people. And the youth said that we have not gone so poor that we are going to decrease funding for education in Africa and Latin America and Asia. This question was raised by youth, which was very genuine. And that was Kerry Speak to Truth to Power. They spoke the truth to the power. That was very real in schools and colleges. And the truth is so powerful that nobody could ignore it. There was a special hearing organized in the Swedish parliament. These student leaders or students were invited to speak. I was also there. I was also invited. And the same evening, the decision of SIDA and Swedish government was not only reverted to maintain, because the children were demanding to maintain that level of ODA. That has been increased almost double then. From $100 million to $180 million within a day. But that is, so I would say that this is the power of compassion, and this is the power of Compassionate Connect. This is the power of young people. It is possible. In India, we organized a long march, the youth. It was not Kailash Satyarthi. Hundreds of thousands of young people marched with us, more than 1 million, 1.2 million. And they had one big issue, big demand, that India should make a strong law against child rape and sexual abuse of children. 4 children are abused sexually or raped in India every hour. That is the police statistics, government statistics. The reality is much more bigger because many people do not go to the police because of the social taboo or a kind of stigma. So it does not work. The march went across the country, culminated in the President House, and within a year, not only the federal government, but the state governments have amended their laws or made new laws, made the whole crime of sexual abuse and rape more stringent and punishable. And now we have seen that how the children have been successful in influencing the politics of India, and the government, not only the government, but the parliament has to make new laws. So these things are possible. I gave 2 successful examples of that, and that's why I believe in the power of every individual, the power of truth which resides each one of us. But we keep on covering up. As I said, we are covering the power of compassion. And the compassion is truth. This is true. This is very much inside us. So, dear friends, need not to wait for a Masiha to come, an incarnation to come, a leader to come and change the world, and don't wait for a savior. I always ask for everyone that the champion is inside each one of us. Just listen carefully. Sit quietly. Close your eyes. Go deep inside you. And if you feel that you are still honest, there's some slight honesty. If you are still truthful, if you are still courageous to speak truth to power, if you still have compassion for others, somewhere which is closed inside a box, but if you feel slightest somewhere, then just get it out. Connect with others and globalize it. Carrie knows that when I was receiving the Nobel Peace Prize, I was invited to speak from the dais as the Nobel acceptance speech. I have lost my papers, speaking notes. It never happened in the history of Nobel Peace Prize in 100 years. This happened for the first time. So king and queen and prime minister and ministers, everybody was nervous, naturally. And this was being watched by millions of people, hundreds of millions of people across the world on CNN and BBC and local channels and so on. That was live in major channels. But I was comfortable. So I remembered a story which I'm going to share with you and close my talk. There was a heavy fire broken out in jungle. All animals and birds were rushing for a safer place, leaving the jungle to save themselves, including King Lion. And Lion noticed that there was a tiny hummingbird flying straight towards the flames. And he was quite shocked, and he shouted, "What are you doing? Committing suicide?" She said, "No, sir. I am going to extinguish this fire." More surprisingly, he asked, "How come?" She said, "Sir, I was born and grew up in this jungle. I cannot leave it like that. Look at my beak. I am carrying a drop of water, and I am doing my bit," she said. She flew Rest is the history. She did not leave the jungle. My dear friends, people like RFK, people like Mandela, Gandhi, people like Martin Luther King, these people drove themselves with the inner compassion, the power of compassion. Their courage comes out of compassion because they could not feel the suffering of others, and they stood for justice. They stood for rights. They stood for freedom. They stood for dignity because they could not simply wait and watch. I strongly feel that passivity and pessimism are the two biggest enemies which we are confronting with. We have to get rid of it. Day before yesterday, I met one of my old friends in jail. It was closed in Brazil, me and Sumedha. And I told him that I could see the light beyond these walls. The sun is shining. You can't see. I could see the sun shining above the clouds. Sometimes the clouds feel stupid clouds. They feel that they have conquered the sun. But never, ever, clouds can conquer a sun. Sun never sleeps. We have to have courage. We have to have resilience. We have to have patience. We have to have action to see the sun beyond the clouds. Dear friends, I am not a professional speaker or a teacher or a priest, but I am here to tell you that there is a tiny hummingbird inside each one of you. Each one of you, each one of you. I am here just to remind you that this tiny hummingbird is inside you. I am here to awaken that. I am there to knock on your heart and tell that no one else. You are the heroes. You are the heroes. You are the heroes. You are the change makers. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.